Welcome to Basic Effects tutorial from AMV Netherlands. In this tutorial we will show you how you can use different effects in Sony Vegas, like a zoom, blur and a flash. We'll also give some tips and tricks on how you can level up your AMV. A nice way to make some impact is with a zoom. Here's an example how a zoom can look like. To make a zoom, you first need two similar scenes. One shot from far away and a close-up shot. Place clip A and clip B next to each other on the timeline. Right-click on an empty space and create a new video layer. Drag clip B to the video layer that you just created. Extend the clip B so that it overlaps with the first clip, like this. Drag the opacity of the second clip down to around 50% so that you can see the two clips overlapping. Now open the pan/crop button. Here we can make a zoom. Make one keyframe at the end of the video and another one around 4 frames earlier. This is not the set amount of frames and can be different every zoom. Now start adjusting the crop until both the clips look the same. It should look something like this. To make the zoom look smoother, right-click on the keyframe and set it either on fast or on smooth. Turn the opacity of the second clip up to 100 again and see what we've got so far. As you can see, you've got your zoom now. This is only the basis of the zoom, so let's add some blur and a flash to make it look even smoother. Go to your Video FX tab, search for Gaussian blur and drag it to your timeline. You can also use radial blur for zooms, but for this example we use the Gaussian blur. Have your cursor in the middle of the two clips and right-click to add a keyframe. Add a keyframe 4 frames before and 4 frames after the first set keyframe. Now double-click on the middle keyframe and change the horizontal range and the vertical range to around 0.0100. Change the blur of 2 outer keyframes to 0 and we're done. Speaking of blurs, blurs are a beautiful way for a nice transition. If a scene feels too raw, try adding some blur to it. It works like magic. Now this does look a bit better, doesn't it? But we can still make it even smoother by adding a flash. This gives the zoom the finishing touch. To add a flash, you have to create another video layer. Set the composition mode to add. Click on the 3 stripes at the beginning of the timeline. Go to composition mode and click on add. Next we have to add a white solid. Go to media generators and add a white solid to the timeline. For this transition, make sure you have the white solid around 10 frames on each side. Set the opacity to around 15 and let them fade on both sides. Now let's see how that turned out. It looks pretty cool, doesn't it? The blur and the flash make the zoom so much smoother. But make sure you don't overuse it or make the blur or flash too strong. The zoom should be the main focus here. There is only one thing we can do to finish the zoom. Try adding a small zoom on the second clip. This way the zoom doesn't stop so abruptly. Now that we've covered the zoom and some effects, here are some other useful tips. An AMV doesn't always need fancy transitions.
Use it, break it, fix it, trash it, change it, mail, upgrade it, charge it, point it, zoom it, press it, snap it, work it, quick erase it.
Sometimes hard cuts can be just as powerful. It is a common mistake to overuse effects. Make the scene itself shine. If a scene is too static, try adding a little zoom to the clip. It's much more interesting to see a scene with movement. You can see what a difference it makes when you add just a bit of movement in a clip. Try avoiding scenes where a character is talking. Try focusing on the character's movements instead. This makes it way more interesting to look at. Also make sure you have some nature or city shots to give it some variety to your AMV. You don't want to look at faces and bodies only. When you speed up a clip, don't make it faster than a human can move. Try to keep it realistic. Try speeding up the clip just a bit to create some more flow. This concludes our tutorial for today. We hope you've learned something about the zoom effect. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask after the panel. Thanks for watching!